Let's actually start with Dame because we've got some awesome stuff here on his historic game. 71 points versus the Houston Rockets yesterday. 41 in the first half, 30 in the second half. He's the first player with 40 and a half and 30 and a half in the same game since Wilt Chamberlain. And Tommy, I was obviously prepping and doing pregame interviews, so I wasn't watching full time, but saw the highlights, and it's the shot making is just fucking ridiculous with Dame.
Before we get to the historic context of what he did, people were talking about this last night. I'm curious what your perspective on it. I don't know if it's crazy or not. Do you think, this is now the second 70-point game this year, do you think somebody could get to 100?
I have a hard time believing a 100-point game will happen. If anyone could do it, I would think it's Dame or Steph. To me, it's got to be somebody who hits 18 threes or 19 threes and gets 15, 20 free throws in a game. Dame, I think, took 14 yesterday. Like that, to me, is the only way. Yeah. It's not going to be a post player like Wilt. It's just not. It's going to be a guard. I guess Luka, you could make an argument if he has like a insane 3-point shooting night. But it's a lot of points.
I have a historic stat about this from last night. So Dame now has 5 60-point games in his career. He has more 60-point games than Steph, LeBron, Shaq, Bird, Magic, Duncan, Russell, and KD combined. Where are we putting him in this conversation of best scoring point guards ever? When you look at numbers like this.
Yeah, on that note, the Wilt has 32 career 60-point games, which is insane. Kobe was 6, Dame with 5. He's third all time now. It's funny when Dame really started to get going 7 or 8 years ago. It coincided with Steph's back-to-back MVP seasons, and I think a lot of people would say something along the lines, well, Dame is a little bit like Steph light. And then he just kept getting better and kept extending his range. That's the thing that is most impressive is the range and the balance that he shoots with. Last night he made 420 feet worth of shots, the most by any player in any game since play-by-play was first tracked in 1996-97. That's the impressive part. As a scoring guard, primary creator, primary ball handler, I mean, you can't top 3, top 5, like at that position for scoring. I think you have to put him that high. He's not in the top 10. He's better than that. And I saw I follow some a Damian Lillard stan. It's really active on NBA Twitter, and he said something along the lines of, NBA Twitter would break if Steph Curry was doing this, if Steph Curry had just done. And while I think there's some truth to that, it feels a little bit like we're a little numb this season. Not that it's not insane what he did, and I'm not saying it wasn't celebrated. I mean, specifically with the Houston Rockets, they've given up double-digit games with guys going for 40 or more. They're a really bad team, by the way. The Houston Rockets are really bad.
But isn't also some of this the Blazers, and they're sitting at 12th in the West right now. They are 11th in the West. They're 10-10 in their last 20. They're 29-31 on the season. They won yesterday. They won last night, but they've not exactly been an inspiring bunch, even with him putting up, and we can run through his specific numbers since January 1st, putting up truly insane numbers. And so not that they need to be first in the West for people to be excited by this, but don't you feel like he's been doing some of this in a losing effort, and that probably blunts some of the enthusiasm from it?
I get the point. I don't disagree with the point. I think it goes back to something that has happened a lot in the Western Conference this season because of the parity between 4 and 13. Phoenix now in 4th after the Clippers lost to the Nuggets last night with 29 losses, OKC in 13th with 32. So all those teams bundled together, sometimes maybe we're not appreciating what's going on, and we're saying, oh, they're not a top 6 seed, but they're a good basketball team. You can't tell me Portland is not a good I'm not saying they're great, but they're a good basketball team. So I think we lose a little bit of that this season because of this parity in the Western Conference between 4 and 13. Let's run through a few things with Dame real quick. First of all, historical context. Third time in NBA history, there were multiple 70-point games in a season. That was in 1961-62 and 62-63, and Wilt had all of those 70-point games. He's just the 8th player to ever record a 70-point game. Here's some cool stuff. He's the oldest player ever with a 70-point game. His 80.4, which is just insane, 80.4 true shooting percentage, the highest in a 70-point game in NBA history, the fewest minutes played in a 70-point game in NBA history. This was his 15th career 50-point game, the 6th most in NBA history. One other interesting nugget about the game, and then we'll get to his run that he's on right now. He made 11 off-the-dribble three-pointers. That ties himself from June 2021 against the Nuggets for the most in a game by any player of the last 10 seasons. That's Second Spectrum data. We only have about 10 seasons of tracking data on that. Just an insane shooting performance. And what he's doing lately, Tommy, over his last 19, 39.4 points a game, 6 40-point games in those 19 games, 1 50-point game, 1 60-point game, and 1 70-point game.
40 over the last 20, 40% from 3 on 12.3 attempts.
This is the thing that I love. And it goes back to the conversation, and this is not a rant. This goes back to the conversation we had on last week's podcast, which was a direct result of Mad Dog and I having a debate about Larry Bird and his shooting. No one is saying that Larry Bird wouldn't be a volume shooter in today's NBA, volume three-point shooter. No one is saying that. I actually think Michael Jordan, if he played in today's NBA, would be a good three-point shooter because he's Jordan. Like, he would have figured it out. I think he was like a 32% three-point shooter for his career. He would have been better in today's NBA. It's again, there's an emphasis on it. Guys, practice it more. We're encouraged to take it more. I mean, even at the end of my career, the analytics guy for all the teams, they'd come over and be like, hey, if you stop when you shot fake from the three-point line and you come in and you take a shot, and granted, for a 5-year stretch, I was a top 5 mid-range shooter in the NBA. They were telling me not to take that shot. Despite the fact I was a top 5 mid-range shooter for like 5 straight years, they were like, if you sidestep, even if your percentage goes down just a little bit, it's worth 1.24 points per shot instead of 1.05, whatever it was. It's like, there's just more of an emphasis. But the thing I love, and Steph, Dame, and James are primarily the 3 guys that drove this. If you are above 35%, but certainly if you're a 40% three-point shooter, get as many jacks up as possible. If you can translate 40% three-point shooting to volume, there's not a fucking better offense.
Yeah.
Just do the math on that. 40%. If you take 10 shots, that's 1.2 points per possession. The Kings right now have the best offense ever, and it's like 1.18. It's a volume 40% three-point shooter, especially someone like Dame that can shoot off the dribble and create his own. Goodness gracious, man.
But isn't part of the question, I guess this just bears out in actual results and in gameplay, isn't part of the question like who actually can do this efficiently versus...
but you don't want a guy shooting 30% to just... And there are some guys.
Start jacking.
Yeah. Guys.
Some people think they are that guy and they cannot do it. Most points since January 1st. Dame is 880 right now, and the second highest is Jalen Brunson with 687. I'm not going to say Dame's going to be in an MVP conversation with them sitting in 11th, but I guess, in his historical context, where does this rank for you in terms of his particular runs over his career? Because he's had a bunch of these.
There's nothing, 19 games, he's got 6 40 balls, a 50 ball, a 60 ball, a 70. So in 9 games out of his last 19, he's got over 40, including a 50 ball, a 60 ball, and a 70 ball. It's one of the best stretches scoring wise, I think, in modern history. I don't think that's over the last 50 seasons. The only players to average that many points over a 13 game span are James Harden and Kobe. So there you go. I think that's the best stretch of his career and one of the best stretches we've seen from a guard. By the way, I just want to say one thing real quick. A few weeks ago on First Take, they let me do 60 seconds on Jalen Brunson, and I gave him some love. And what I said was, since January 1st, since the start of the new year, he's playing as well as any guard in the NBA outside of Damian Lillard. I said that. That was a direct quote right there. And the responses to that showed me how many fucking casual fans there are. Some people were like, well, what about Steph? I'm like, well, Steph is injured right now.
He's not playing.
What the fuck? I love the whataboutism.
That doesn't seem like a hot take at all. That's just based on, you don't even have to watch the game. Just look at the box score.
Well, or you could just watch the game and just see what Jalen Brunson does on a nightly basis and how important he is, especially in clutch. If you want to watch the rest of the episode, check out The Old Man of the Three Things, available exclusively on Amazon Music.